Hey y'all, this is AL Think Madame. I still haven't ran my errands yet or whatever, but my mind was kind of heavy a little bit. I was thinking about something. So last night I went to see my friend and hang out with her, and she started scrolling through her Netflix account looking at some stuff that she wanted to try to add to her watch list and all that stuff. So we talking, and so I'm on my phone checking a message or something at that time, and she was like, "Have you heard of this before? Have you watched this?" So I was like, "What you talking about?" So I looked up at it and I watched a little preview of it, and what I'm referring to is the trials of Gabriel Fernandez. It's on Netflix. I hadn't heard of it before, so I'm watching the preview, y'all. I'm pretty sure I didn't even get 15 to 20 seconds into the preview before I just lost it. Like, I cannot, like, I just went off. So before, I basically just blacked out, essentially. It was discussing how there was a child that had been placed into foster care, and the parents, it was either foster care or the child had been adopted. Anyway, and the child had been being, like, abused and then some, and basically the parents killed the child. And I'm just like, what you mean? Like, what is going on here? So y'all, I was just like, what? And I'm just tired. I cannot, like, whether it was the biological parents or not, y'all, I'm telling y'all, I blacked out once I saw all that. Anyway, I said all that to say this. So, as many of y'all know, I have been a social worker before, and I do plan on going back into that because that is my calling. I went to school and got a degree in social work, and I was an amazing social worker. If I do say so myself, my clients felt the same. So yeah, pretty sure that's going to start happening for me sooner than later, and I am preparing myself for that because it is very, very mental. It can mess with your emotional health if you let it, and it's a very demanding job. If you are not built for that, if you are not there for the right reasons, you should not go into that. Don't be a social worker. Do not be a caseworker. Don't do anything that has anything to do with that. So anyway, I want to put y'all up on something, especially if you're not familiar with what has been put in place by law. And it has ties to my home state, Alabama. And in all honesty, it was because of this case that everybody is supposed to be, living up to this standard. Okay, y'all. So we got a good old siren going by. I'm not editing nothing. I'm not stopping nothing. So anyway, I'm gonna read it off to y'all. It's not long. It is the RC versus Fuller. It's a case. So ultimately, I'm gonna be discussing the RC decree. That's what they call it. Just so you know, because I don't think it discusses it in this, RC is basically the initials that were given to the child that this case is based off of. So, RC was an emotionally disturbed child removed from the home due to allegations of abuse and neglect. Though he'd never been diagnosed, as psychotic or seriously mentally ill, he was given large doses of psychiatric. Y'all, sorry, all these every time I'm doing a video, somebody is setting it off. He was given all kinds of medication while he was in the state's custody. Concerned about the inappropriate treatment given to RC and other children in foster care, lawyers for the center, the Bazelon Center for Mental Health and Alabama Disabilities Advocacy Program filed a class action lawsuit in 1988 against the Alabama Department of Human Resources, which is DHR. That's who I worked for in the biggest county, Montgomery. The lawyers claimed that child welfare authorities failed to provide appropriate treatment and services to RC, causing his condition to deteriorate. Like hundreds of other foster children, RC was bounced around from one placement to another instead of being provided a stable environment. First, DHR placed RC in a psychiatric hospital for a few weeks. Next, they transferred him to a psychiatric unit of a second hospital for 6 months. He left the psychiatric unit for a few days, then returned for another 6-month stay. His next stop was a home for children who are psychotic or suffer serious behavioral disorders. In 1991, the district court issued a consent decree in RC versus Fuller that requires dramatic changes in the way child welfare authorities provide for children with special mental health needs and their families. The new standards emphasize working with families in crisis in order to solve problems instead of simply removing children from the home, investigating allegations of abuse and neglect faster, providing appropriate and stable placements for children removed as last resort, reducing caseloads for social workers and investigators, devoting more resources to DHR county agencies, and providing appropriate mental health services for children with special needs. DHR remains under the court supervision as lawyers work to bring 67 county agencies into compliance with the new standards. So yeah, y'all. This case came to be in 1988, and I think it was settled in 1991. Well, I ain't gonna say all that. 1991, and it says something about 1999 as well. But yeah, the most happened, and the state was sued. You know what I'm saying? The department was sued because they weren't doing the things they needed to do to make sure that the child's well-being was being met. It was to the point where, in all honesty, the father, he was fully capable of doing what he needed to do. And they just took the child out of the house just to be like, let me just snatch the child out of the house. And that's why I used to really get in my feelings when people would see me coming and then they would run and be like, the social worker here. Like they literally would run around the neighborhood and be like, social worker. And I'm like, it's almost on the level of me being a police officer in certain neighborhoods, and they ain't here for that. Because for me, as I mentioned several times before, when I was a social worker, I never took a child out of a house and placed them into foster care. The only thing I've ever done when a child was removed or children were removed, they were placed into relative placements. So I was still able to have them all together. And I think in all of my cases, I was able to have all of my kids stay together if there was just more than one child. All of them were still able to stay together, thank goodness. Because you know how it can be sometimes when the kids get separated. So I just always hated that stigma that came along with it, and how people would treat you once they find out that that's what you do. In all honesty, that the assumption of you is, oh, you're a social worker, you take kids. And I hate that, because that's never what I've done. Now, when I get back into it again, I don't know if something will happen on my caseload, and that's what I will have to do in order for the child to be in the environment that they need to be in. And it's like, you, in all honesty, if you do have to go to that side and deal with foster parents and all that stuff, you never know what you're going to get. You are hopeful that they're going to be amazing and that they're going to do what they need to do, but you are never fully aware or sure if they have some kind of mean streak, they're beating these kids. There have been several that have taken in kids for checks, and they will open their home up to several different families of kids for these checks. And it's sad. It is disgusting. And it's like, at some point, it's kind of like, it's like, what can you do? But at the same time, it's like, I wish I could do something about that. But like I said before, I never had to do that. But social workers are seen in a negative light most of the time. And when I saw that little preview, I was like, yeah, I'm not watching that. Like, I'm not watching it because I know I'm going to be tired in my spirit. There are so many cases where cases are open, active cases where these social workers are supposed to be going out to the house to making sure that the lights are on, food is in the refrigerator, the house is cold if it's summertime, it's warm if it's the wintertime, and they're actually living there. The beds are how they need to be, the clothes are what they need to be and not too small for them. They're kempt, water's on, house is decent. Still supposed to be going to the schools. You're supposed to be going to see these people's, see the doctors, you know what I'm saying? Talk to the doctors to see, what's going on when they bring them in, whether it's something to do with, their actual health, their mental health, their physical health, all of that. I tell you what, I've gone to many a hospital. I've gone to regular doctors. I've gone to the children's counselors. I've gone to dermatologist appointments. I've gone to several people's homes. I mean, that was a part of my caseload anyway, because I had so many children on my caseload that were at risk. So if a lot of my kids, if you were considered to be at risk, I have to see you. I have to lay eyes on that child or the children at least once in a month. At least one time, I have to lay eyes on them and say to myself, okay, they got the clothes on. The clothes are clean. They smell clean. They look kempt. Their hair is done. I've been to the house. The house is, looking how it's supposed to look. Everything is on. The bills are paid. The environment seems cool. Everybody seems to be doing what they need to do. I done went to that doctor. The doctor told me that all this stuff that had been flaring up in the child has, mellowed out how it needs to, because there have been times that I've had children who have had certain stressors that have contributed to random flare-ups, and then they were prescribed medications, whether it was topical or oral, and they had to take them. It had to be administered, and if it wasn't doing what it needed to do, or the parent wasn't giving it to them and putting it on them, or whatever they need to do in order to administer those drugs, I would be able to tell by looking at that child. The skin was still tore up, the scalp was still inflamed, whatever the situation was going on, whatever. And I'll be able to see that. And basically, if things were not up to par, I would talk to the parents or the guardians, whoever had, legal custody of the children, to see, what's going on. And, that's the thing, like, you're not supposed to be quick to be like, all right, let's snatch them out the house. You're not supposed to do that. Like, they could be having a slight hardship that month. They might need a little help. And I would ask them what was going on. They'd be like, well, can you, do this? Oh, okay. If I can, if we had money, because I worked in the Child Protective Services unit. It wasn't foster care. Child Protective Services, at least as far as when I was there, it works solely off of donations. So the only way we were able to pay bills and all this other stuff when we were asked, or if we, felt the need to do so, the only way we could do that, the only way we could operate on doing that is people being gracious enough to donate. Foster care, they have an allotment that they're given every year, so they were cool, they were good. We didn't have that, solely based off of donations. So I would have people to ask if I could pay their rent. I would have people to ask me all the time if we could pay for daycare, pay for gas, for, to warm the house. There were times that we paid for mental health sessions. So they were seeing therapists and all that stuff. We would pay for that. And a lot of times, in all honesty, we were paying for stuff out of our pockets. You know what I'm saying? There were times I paid for stuff, I didn't get reimbursed. And it wasn't necessarily because there was a problem going on. There were times that I had amazing kids that were on my caseload that were at risk, or they weren't at risk, and they did well in school. So I would buy them things. If their mama would tell me that they like a certain thing, like if they like Hello Kitty or whatever, I would get them something that was Hello Kitty. One of my kids, her mama couldn't really afford much of anything, and her birthday was coming up. The girl was a straight A student. She would help her mama with the babies. She was everything. That girl did everything. Like she was an amazing student. I bought her a birthday cake because her mama wanted to do a birthday party for her. And I mean, she broke down in tears, couldn't do it. I bought a birthday cake for her with the child's favorite thing at the time on it. I forgot what it was. So I had that made and I brought it to her house over the weekend. Keep in mind, my shift is first shift. That's what it was anyway. I worked from my time was 7 to 3:30 or 4, whatever it was. This was a Saturday. So I took time out of my Saturday that I didn't get paid for, and I didn't get reimbursed for the stuff that I was paying for. I bought a birthday cake that was like $50. I bought her presents. I bought little stuff for the kids too, because you can't just, people have to realize that you can't just do stuff for one and don't do nothing for the other ones, because they were younger. So I still bought them little stuff too, and they were happy. So I stayed for the little birthday and all that stuff. She was happy. I actually took this child to Chuck E. Cheese before, gave her money for tokens, all that stuff. And I've done that with like select kids, you know what I'm saying? And it's fine. You know, at least for us, when I was doing it, they said that it was fine for us to do stuff like that if we wanted to. And for me, I did it, and I didn't expect to be reimbursed for that. I didn't get reimbursed for my gas. I did not live close at all to them. You know what I'm saying? So I already was using my gas up. I'm buying all this stuff. I'm spending over $100 just on the birthday party alone, just to make this happen for her mama. You know what I'm saying? Her mama is distraught because the father is not from the States, and he apparently was abusive. It was just a whole, y'all, when I tell y'all if I told y'all half the stuff that was going on with just that one case, you'd be like, you got to be making this up. Like, it literally was so much stuff going on with just that one case. I was like, Lord have mercy. How is this child making all A's? How? But anyway, so you just have to understand that all social workers are not like that. With this case, my understanding is a case was open. These people weren't doing what they were supposed to do. The parents ended up killing this child, and I'm just like, I don't have time. They literally beat the child to death. And it's like, what is the child doing that's so bad? Now, I don't remember if the child had mental disabilities and all that stuff, but that's still no reason. If you couldn't handle it, then you should have said, okay, I need help. Or whatever, give the child up so that somebody who actually has the patience to deal with a child like that can do that, because there are very, very well-equipped people out there who can do that, and they're willing to do that, whether they're getting paid for it or not. So y'all, I'm sorry, I had to come on here and discuss this because just that little snippet, it tore my nerves down. I mean, my mama would call me and ask me had I heard about something that was in the news. I remember like one time she called me and somebody had did something in New York, and it was like a similar situation. Tore my nerves down. So then one day, I think I was still a social worker. She called me at work. She was like, did you hear that y'all can, they starting to do bulletproof vests? Like, my mama was excited, and it's sad. And I'm like, I kind of was excited too, but at the same time, it's like, it's sad that you got to get bulletproof vests to go out to these houses. Because people are out here like, oh, you gonna take my child, I don't trust you, and they will kill you. I gotta get a bulletproof vest. I gotta get mace. I gotta get all this stuff just to go to your house. A case was assigned to me, but you out here willing to kill me because you don't want me to take your child, because in a lot of the cases that's like that, they feel like you taking their bread and butter. Tax time coming up, don't take my child. I'm getting $3,000 and some for all these kids for food stamps. You ain't finna take my meal ticket away. I'm not finna go work. I'm not finna do nothing. And a lot of the people on my caseloads were like that, and they would do the bare minimum or they wouldn't do anything. And that's not everybody's testimony, but I'm just saying a lot of the kids that were on my caseload, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. A lot of the parents had drug issues, and it was just, there were so many different factors. It was just like, it's hard for me to take a case, work that case, and bring it full circle to where DHR involvement is no longer needed. I only was able to take one case during the time I was a social worker to what they call case closure. Case closure uh, meeting. And that's something that happens once a month. And there is at least, two people from each department that sits in there, whether they have a case to present or not. And you basically give a summary of how the case was opened to us and what the goals were for them. Did they, meet those goals, surpass those goals, and get to the point where they would no longer need any assistance from DHR and would not have to have basically DHR on their back anymore and having a watchful eye over them and their families. So I was able to only bring one case and close it successfully. And it's crazy because after I closed the case, I popped up at the woman's house a couple of times after I was done, again, on my own dime, not having to get reimbursed or any of that, because I really wanted to make sure that she was still doing what she needed to do. And the woman made a complete transformation, a complete 180 with what she was doing. And it was just amazing. And it was one of those cases when I first got it, she was really resistant. And I was just like, ma'am, like this case was given to me. And like they mentioned in what I read to y'all, like they are supposed to be working on lowering how many cases each worker is supposed to have. But I think the most that we were supposed to have was 18 or 20. And that's not kids, that's cases. And I had 6 kids sometimes on one case. And all the kids aren't necessarily right there. So sometimes I would have to make multiple visits to the house or to the school so I can make sure, yes, I laid eyes on this one on this date when I'm doing my paperwork. And it's like a lot. People don't understand how much paperwork is involved. People do not understand. So that's why I'm saying, like, if you really ain't out here trying to do what you're supposed to do and you really are not passionate about this, do not get into this. Do not do it. Don't sit up here getting a check. The check ain't all that. I mean, it's okay when you're on a certain level, but at the same time, you need to do your work. A lot of these people are out here not earning the check. So you out here wasting money that could have been given to somebody who actually wants to do the job because you're not it. But anyway, y'all, I'm sorry I went on a little rant, but this is something that's very important to me. And it tears my nerves up when stuff like this happens because it's like it's something that did not have to happen. It's just something that did not have to happen. We already have enough people out here snatching kids. We already got enough people out here just killing them for no reason when they had a loving home that they were going to. And people snatching them up and doing the most to them and raping them. And it's just like you're ruining these kids. And then they get to a point where they want to kill themselves. I'm just glad that I had enough love around me that when these various things happened to me where I've been raped and I've been molested, that I didn't feel so low that I never could get up out of that because I have contemplated suicide when I was a child and all that stuff, when all this stuff happened to me. And it's like you feel worthless. You feel like nothing. And that's no way for a child to feel. But these people over here that sat up here and killed this child, like I can't, stuff like this tear my nerves down. I can't, that's something I will not be watching. If I have anything to do with it, I won't be watching it. So I can't. But anyway, y'all, hopefully some of y'all learned something from this as far as the RC decree and all that stuff. And how, even though I despise when people make jokes about Alabama and in reference to calling people Obama and all this other stuff, because there are other southern states and even places up north and on the different coasts that do the most as well. But it always disturbs me and makes me mad when people call people Obama. And I'm just like... But yeah, I just wanted to kind of bring some recognition to how Alabama, set somewhat of a standard of how it's supposed to be. Even though they got some stuff out there right now. Like somebody less than 2 weeks ago, some foster parents are suing, or some people are suing. Like, y'all, when I tell y'all I'm trying to be my happy place and not even see the negative stuff that's coming out about stuff like this, I was completely oblivious to this until it randomly popped up. Apparently, like, some people are suing the state of Alabama, if I'm not mistaken, for like millions or something, 250 million or something like that, y'all. I don't know, but it's a lot. It's still along the same lines of what's going on right now in that documentary, and how people are not being handled the way they should. And it's just stuff like that. And it's like, y'all still ain't getting it right after all this stuff. After the RC decree, you would think that everybody would get it right, especially if you live in the state of Alabama. Like, you doing any of this kind of work in the state of Alabama, none of this should be an issue anymore. It just shouldn't be. Like, this, a national spotlight was put on Alabama back then because of this. And everybody, all the other states had to, like, get on board because that's how detrimental it was. And children should have to live like this. But anyway, y'all, I went on long enough. I'm sorry. Anyway, hopefully somebody got something out of this, some information out of this that they didn't know. I hope y'all have a good one. I'm about to get out of here, hopefully, and come back and enjoy and relax the rest of my day. Get some gaming in, hopefully, in a show. Hope you have a good one. Bye, y'all.